ora, Lara here, and today I am sharing a layout created for the Pour Your Way Into Our Hearts collab. So there'll be some links below with all of the other fantastic creations sharing people's love of pets. So to start with, I am using a close to my heart cardstock, and I think it is Glacier. I don't have my little cardstock checker thing here with me at the beach house to tell you exactly which colour it is. However, I am now stamping with some Pool Party Stampin' Up! Ink with the Drizzling Droplets Cling stamp set. It's the first time I've actually used this stamp set, but not sure why. It's rather gorgeous, and I've decided for this layout I'm going to create sort of a two-sided strippy kind of pattern paper thing. More often than not, my photos are central to the layout, and I thought, why not try something a little bit different? So I am using here one of the papers that is no longer in use, and if I can find the title of it, I will link it below, but it was sort of all about pets or something like that from the last Stampin' Up! Release. Just looking in the packet as I do this voiceover to see if I saved the label, but it doesn't look like it's in this one. The other papers I am using are from the Dandy Designs, which you can still get a hold of on the Stampin' Up! Website over here in New Zealand and Australia anyway. So I'm just tearing the strips. I sort of trimmed them. I've sort of done them 1 inch less each time so that when I stick them down, I can sort of layer it and have a little bit peeking out from each. So the right side is going to be a little bit thinner than the left hand side, and I've sort of decided that the three of the 4 photos are going to be tucked in down the left and one of them tucked in on the right. So this tiny little strip here, I probably should have just started again, but when I stuck it down it was just fine. It sort of tore a little bit. It wasn't really one that I could tear because I'd only done it at 1/2 inch. So mental note, don't try and do paper tearing with a 1/2 inch strip, but I just used my scissors to try and rough up the edge a little bit. So when I pull it all together, and at the very end I'm going to sort of crinkle up the papers anyway, so you won't really know. So to stick these down, I'm just using some of the tear tape, but I am doing it so that I know I'm going to be able to tuck something in. So you'll see how I've left, apart from that teeny tiny piece, most of it has got a little bit of room. See how I'm tucking that under there so that I can tuck some photos or some other embellishments and things in on it. So the cats that I am documenting here are not my own pets. They are my parents' cats, and my parents are having a bit of a holiday, which they tend not to go away for a long time or for any length of time, because one of these cats, Harry, and he's sort of the creamier looking of the two in the photos when you can see them, he needs twice daily insulin. And so that just sort of involves drawing up some insulin and injecting him when he eats some food. So it's not too hard. However, sort of taking responsibility for these guys feels a little bit high pressure. The whole what if something happens to them, but they are or have been very precious to my parents over the last few years, to the fact that they are still keeping them alive by giving Harry his insulin twice a day. So I have decided that since I'm looking after them at the beach house here, and that's what I pop into the journaling, so it might seem a bit odd that I'm using sort of the hearts that I'm doing at the moment are fine, but I'm going to pull in some seaside wishes as well. But this hearts embossing folder is pretty cool. You saw how I put the die cut into the embossing folder. It meant that I've cut out some really cool textured hearts, and the offcut from that stencil that you saw, sort of the outline, I have used that before for a little bit of stenciling, so it can be sort of used both ways, or you can use it without the die cut, and that way you've got a series of hearts. Now with these here, I do put this one through and it doesn't quite work, so I decide in the end to put them through with a little bit of tape. See how they didn't quite work out there? I decide to redo it, and when I stick these down, I'm going to stick them down with some tape, and then I'll get the full heart. So they moved around a little bit inside the die cutting machine. that you'll see how I'm sticking them down there, and I'm going to put that through and I get full hearts. So I could have used the off-cut ones that are there, and I do use some of them because I'm going to be tucking it into the paper, but you'll just see how the washi tape there just held them in place, and it meant that I was able to then just use my sort of die cut brush here to take out the little pieces. I did wonder about backing these little hearts, but I decided there was enough when it came to pulling it all together, there was enough to not back them. So in that die cut for the hearts, there is some smaller hearts that would have given me some backing, so I could have just cut those and backed the little fine detail hearts. So now it's time to add some embellishments. With the seaside wishes that you saw me open up there, I realised I had cut some that I hadn't used in the past, so those are just there, some little sand dollars and starfish, and I decided that that would be enough and I'll just make do with that. So these little CD cases or DVD cases probably, are quite good for storing extra cuts that you've done as well, so you don't need to put them somewhere else or get rid of them, but you've got a handy place just to keep them in there. So I just cut those on some basic white cardstock. And I'm now matting my photos on some basic white cardstock and deciding whether I want some pattern paper behind them as well. I play around with a few different textures. The black that I try here was just a bit too much. These cats with their sort of soft tones, I guess, or warm tones, it felt like I didn't want to bring in some really dark, heavy colours with them. Louis is quite a dark, sort of chocolatey, gorgeous looking cat. He's actually quite ginormous really when you pick him up. He's extremely heavy, which you don't realise. I had some friends with us recently and one of them picked him up and didn't realise quite how heavy he was. So I'm just roughly cutting the edges of these. They don't need to be perfect because I'm sort of going to curl up the edges of it as well. So that was another paper from the Dandy Designs that I backed those with. So just tucking them in a few different places there before I'm ready to stick them down. So happy with how that's sort of coming together, and so now I'm just going to put a little bit of the tear tape on each of them before tucking them back in place. So I wonder, when we think of our pets, how long or how much is too much. Just the cost of pets, medical stuff like insulin for a cat will be an actual cost that mum and dad pay, rather than it being something that's provided medically. And I don't know with things like diabetes being a medical issue how much of a cost people do have with that, but I just wonder how far people would go to look after a loved pet. And our pets do become pretty special to us, so it's no surprise that Harry does get his twice daily insulin, and he also gets some ointment to do with his thyroid as well, rubbed into his ears twice a day each time he gets his insulin. So there's a lot of sort of work involved in caring for our unwell animals, and yeah, I just wonder how many people would continue with that level of care and input for a loved pet, and at what point does the pet become miserable, or does it become necessary to make other choices for our loved animals and loved pets? So you can see here that I stamped with the petal pink onto the bigger starfish. There's 2 starfish in this set, and I just stamped it onto that bigger one. And I'm just now placing some of the hearts, some of the little outline hearts that I had wondered about putting some backing on but decided not to. And I'm just using some of the green Tombow, just to tuck it on there, just to stick it down. It sort of works quite well with the different textures. The other option here would have been using some foam adhesive, but I just decided to stick with the glue just to keep it super simple. So just tucking another little heart up there to the top left. So I've sort of got 3 clusters going on here, that triangle kind of design feature, just with a few randomish kind of ones tucked in at different places. And you can see how I'm pulling in both the seaside wishes and the adoring hearts into the page, just The location relates to the Seaside Wishes because I am staying at the beach house, my parents' beach house, to look after these cats. It's a great place to spend my term break. It's nice, got beach walks just down at the end of the garden. It's quite peaceful, don't have the daily life, the everyday stuff that goes on at home and the busyness of being a teacher with 3 young men living in our house, as well as my husband. So it's just quite nice to get away and spend a bit of time, looking after or pet sitting, but also relaxing and enjoying some peace and quiet alongside doing my schoolwork in a different environment. So I have chosen to use some of the foam lettering that Close to My Heart put out a couple of years ago. I have changed over to being a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator from Close to My Heart. However, I've still got quite a good collection of Close to My Heart products that I do need to use up. So I do love this lettering, and it just seemed to fit really nicely with this page. I'd wondered about some stamps and some other things that I had, but decided that this would be the best choice. So I'm using a white gel pen here to do my journaling. I didn't want it to be black, like the same reasoning with the photo, so I didn't want to make it too heavy. So what I've just written there is July term break 2024 was spent cat sitting. This also meant twice daily insulin for Harry. Such gorgeous and affectionate boys. Kiss, kiss. So now I'm wrinkling up the little pieces of paper and just sort of adding a little bit more texture and dynamic around those photos, as well as around the patterned paper that back the photos. So I did get my handy tool here, but it didn't really work with these Close to My Adhesive Honey Bunny dots. So these were again using up some of my older Close to My Heart products, and I just chose to use the green, the peachy colour and the bluey colour, which I think may be Glacier, matching the cardstock that I used in the background there. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing me put together this layout, and I also hope that you will check out the links below to see some other Pour Your Way Into Our Hearts collab kind of layouts, and that it might inspire you to document your loved animals. Thanks heaps for watching, and subscribe if you've enjoyed watching this video.